Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Deraney, and I'm your host. Kira, great to see you.
Drew, thank you so much for welcoming me on the show. It's been awesome getting to know you recently, and I'm really excited to share this conversation with you.
I'm looking forward to it also. Um, I always thank the person who introduced me to my guest, and this thank you goes out to Leah Pantis. Leah, thank you so much for listening to the show and for sharing it with Kira. Because if you hadn't, we wouldn't be on together, and we needed to meet. So thank you, Leah. So the audience knows I always talk about how when we're young, we're taught that life is a straight path. It's linear. And it's not a malicious teaching because the people teaching us that want it to be that way for us. They want us that if they say to us you have to do A plus B plus C. If you do that, D's going to happen. And for the most part, life is linear until it's not. At some point, ultimately in our lives, an external circumstance comes and it's called adversity, and it gets in between one of those letters and kind of derails our straight path in life and turns it into a more circuitous route. With that, we either have a choice or we don't. The adversity's there. Now, think about that adversity and think about what I say are three different types of men. Man number one has a ton of blind spots. He doesn't even see the adversity. And because he doesn't see the adversity, there's no choice there because he believes he's living his life, yet he's really living somebody else's life. He's on autopilot. He changes nothing, and that's how his life ends. Then there's man number two. Now, man number two sees the adversity, and he says to himself, I see that. That is a barrier. I'm the victim. Life is to blame. It's doing it to me. There's nothing I can change. It is what it is. And he lives his life on autopilot. And on his deathbed, here's the difference. On his deathbed, he's got so many regrets because that's when he realizes he had choices and he didn't make any decisions to change. I don't have man number one or man number two on this show. I have man number three on this show. I have Kira Shishkin on this show. Man number three sees the adversity. He's got a heightened self-awareness, and he says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm not going to do this anymore. This adversity is not a barrier. It's an opportunity for me to take massive action, do something differently, and become a stronger man on the other side. So with all that, Kira, if you could, reach back as far as you need to for that defining moment, whether it was the tap on the shoulder, the whisper in the ear, or like what I needed, the 2x4 upside my head, that kind of transformed you from the man you were, whether it was man number one or man number two or both, to the man you are now and how that transformation has impacted you personally and then professionally. Would you care to share with us, my friend?
Absolutely, Drew. I love the framework that you surface, and I think for me personally, I've been all three of these men,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you the story of all three of these men. And I'd like to think I'm the third now. Time will tell if my future self will agree with me now.
Right.
But when I was 12 or 13, I was just growing up. Or I would say maybe the man number one is that childhood. So I don't know if man qualifies because I was a boy, but the boy number one, I was living on autopilot. I had many flaws, gaps in emotional awareness, gaps in intelligence. Just I was a kid, and I very much felt like I was living on autopilot, not really concerned with self improvement, not really concerned with I was just kind of going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
And if, frankly, now looking back at that image, that boy one image, uh, I was really concerned for that kid because I felt like that boy was not going places, so to speak. He was not aware of the trajectory of his life or of the sort of the consequence of choices and the fact that he had choices to begin with.
Right.
And that was very much like the kind of like that sort of man one image of going through the motions, being super unaware,
Mm-hmm.
being super, I think in many ways on autopilot. I think you put it really well. It's a generous way to put it.
Right.
And then something happened to me. It was something that I could not foresee. It was a tragedy, and it was really a real stick in the wheel.
Mhm.
But I grew up in Ukraine,
Okay.
in Kiev, in the capital of Ukraine. And one summer morning, when um, my family, which was my sister, myself, and I, we had like this nuclear family. Uh, we were coming back from a big city called Odessa. That's also like one of the big cities of Ukraine.
Okay.
We're heading back to Kiev, and uh, we were driving on a high speed interstate highway,
Yeah.
and as we were driving, we um, had a car uh, crash into us.
Okay.
Two drunk drivers who were also elderly lost control of the vehicle, crashed into ours at a pretty high speed. It was,
Mhm.
think of the German Autobahn. It was a
Yeah.
very high speed freeway. And so, a few months later, I sort of wake up, open my eyes, and I'm like, whoa, what happened? And it was a miracle that I woke up in the first place,
Right.
because I wasn't expected to. I was
Oh wow.
expected to be gone. Um, but I woke up, right? I can attribute that to sort of any force within our control, outside of our control.
Mhm.
But for some reason, one reason or another, I woke up, and I couldn't remember, not just that, accident, or many things, but I couldn't remember my life. I had this, pretty long-term amnesia
Oh wow.
over essentially all of my childhood. And when my father walked into the room, I couldn't recognize him.
Oh boy.
I was like, "Who is this human? Who is this person?" When I woke up, I couldn't walk, and I couldn't talk. I've lost a lot of my usual, or for taken for granted
Yeah.
functionality.
Wow.
And it wasn't certain if, my awakening wasn't certain, and my coming back into full facilities, full
Mhm.
faculties, um, also was not certain.
Right.
And so it began this sort of uh, climb back up. And with my trauma, and with my sort of physical disability that has haunted me for years after the accident, my family had to move to Israel.
Okay.
And in Israel, coming from Ukraine into Israel was a huge cultural
Sure.
shock and
Yeah.
shift. We came there for healthcare. We came there to heal the traumas that myself and my mother have sustained, and that were
Right.
very, very uh, damaging, so to speak. They were very
Right.
serious injuries, and it took years to sort of heal them, and to get back on top of life. And now I sort of have my faculties regained, and I feel, and a lot of people don't realize that I've gone through this experience.
Right.
And so now it's almost hard to pinpoint and say, hey, you know, nothing happened to you, right? Like, you're completely fine. They can't see the scar. They
No.
can't see the kind of the story behind it. And I
Sure.
like it that way, because I
Right.
get to tell the story
Right.
selectively to people that matter. And I get to
Absolutely.
show them the scar that sort of starts at the base of my head and goes all the way around.
Wow.
But I think, for the purposes of perhaps, your interest,
Mhm.
I'd love to take the audience to those couple of years
Yes,
when
definitely.
the recovery was far from certain,
Yes.
and when, it was not clear if I had a life to live outside that moment.
Mhm.
So when I woke up in that hospital bed in Odessa, um, I was I just felt a weakness,
Mhm.
a weakness of mind, a weakness of body, a weakness of everything that
Yeah.
I've never encountered. I was like 13 years old. So for me,
Wow.
I had no toolkit for interacting or processing trauma
Mhm.
of the scale that has just occurred to my
Sure.
family and to
Sure.
myself. And so for me, it was just, I had no idea how to deal with this. And as I started sort of regaining some very base motor functions of just being able to walk without a stick or a stick or a wheelchair, which was initially, as I started being able to form sentences
Hmm.
and sort of be able to use my muscles again after months of atrophy,
Sure.
we moved to Israel. And in Israel, it was just a whole different ball game because not only was I going through the physical recovery
Sure.
experience of like getting back in terms of my functions, I couldn't think. Like I couldn't mentally, I couldn't function. I couldn't learn anything.
Wow.
I couldn't remember anything. And I couldn't like concentrate. Like I couldn't focus. And I think
Right.
for me, and I think we'll get into this later on as to what I'm working on right now,
Sure.
my attention was one of the biggest losses that
Yeah.
like I've ever experienced. Like I could no longer wield my focus.
Hmm.
It was still it was I felt like it was robbed from me.
Right.
I felt like someone came in and stole my attention.
Roll your
I mean, they
attention.
also stole my ability to function mechanically,
Right.
motor skill,
Right.
ability to do anything. And I find myself in this new environment on top of all of this. I find
Hmm.
myself in a Middle Eastern culture, which is a huge orange apples and oranges from Eastern European culture.
Right. Right. Right.
And I have no friends. I'm so alone. I'm 13 years old. And if you've ever been alone as a kid,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most torturing experiences that you can have. I mean, I think generally in life, but especially as a kid,
Yeah.
it's incredible. And so here I was, you know, physically disabled, mentally disabled, um, alone
Hmm.
in a culture I don't understand and I can't relate to it.
Right.
I don't speak any languages that this culture speaks. I didn't speak English. I didn't speak Hebrew.
Hmm.
I don't understand anything that's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm 13 years old, so I have no toolkit
Yeah.
for navigating this this sort of like challenge, this adversity.
Sure.
And so there comes the man number two,
Okay.
right? And he
Yeah.
sort of comes
Yeah.
into my spirit, into my body, and he feels victimized.
Right.
He
Right.
feels like, how did this happen to me?
Hmm.
More importantly, how did this happen to my little sister and to
Yeah.
my mother,
Yep.
who
Hmm.
have never done anything wrong in their life? There is no
Yep.
destiny, fate, God that could allow this,
Hmm.
right? And so the anger that I've held in my body, and the victimization,
Yeah.
the feeling of this was done to us,
Right. Right.
right? And the victimhood that I've embodied for years
Right.
led me to only make matters worse. Led me to suicidal thoughts and
Right.
suicidal attempts.
Sure.
Led me to self harm.
Hmm.
Led me to anger that would whiplash
Hmm.
on other people,
Right.
right? People that I loved and cared about, and people that I also wanted to connect with in a moment where I needed connection the most.
Right.
I was going through these contortions of processing this curse, what felt like a curse
Right.
that was has come onto me. And it took years of like healing,
Yeah.
of working through, of crying and trying and figuring out like, okay, maybe I'm a victim. So what? I'm the only one who can rescue me.
Hmm.
I'm the only one who can regain my faculties. I'm the only one who can do anything about
Right.
making the situation better.
Yeah.
And around there, I think, year one, two, maybe it was year two or three of my recovery post accident.
Hmm.
It took a while
Sure.
where I started feeling less like I wanted to be a victim. I was getting tired.
Yeah.
I
Tired
was
of being
getting
a
sick
victim.
and tired of getting of
There.
being sick and tired.
There you go.
And that's where it began the third image of
Right.
myself that I believe still sort of carries with me
Absolutely.
of I'm the only one who can do something about this.
Yeah.
Or there's no use. I've spent a few years whining and crying and feeling like a victim, and now there is look, no one can deny, right? Objective sense.
Right.
that I was a victim of the
Oh yeah,
situation.
exactly.
And I want to
Exactly.
rob myself of that. Like
Mm-mm.
I didn't do this.
Mm-mm.
We didn't do this. There
No.
was a drunk driving elderly couple that lost control of a vehicle,
Yep.
smashed into us. I mean, this is like a meteorite. You're walking on the
Yes.
street, you're walking the field, and it's a meteorite falling
Yeah.
down,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I've accepted that this just happened, right? And I get to feel like a victim, and I am perhaps just a victim,
Right.
but it's not an image that I wanted to see myself through, right?
Exactly.
Like it happened to be the circumstance, but not my identity
Good for you.
that I was willing to
Yeah.
adopt.
Right.
And so I began this journey of, taking everything much more seriously. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I could learn because it took me hard. It took me so much more time
Right.
to read, to understand, to remember. I had to put in double, triple, 10x the work just to keep up with other kids,
Right.
other peers. But I was determined
Good.
because I was like, it's either I go through the hard part
Right.
or I'm left with nothing. I'm left with very little. I'm left with
True.
my status quo,
Mm-hmm.
which to me was unacceptable.
Right. Good for you. Right.
And that sort of began the recovery and the more conscious recovery of like,
Mm-hmm.
I want my life back.
Of
I
course.
am not okay not having my attention,
Right.
not having my memory, not having my learning,
Yeah.
and ability to improve myself. And so, you know, I'll pause here,
Uh,
but I'm
unbelievable.
giving you a big
Unbelievable.
story.
Well, first big question: how's your sister?
Better
Okay.
than ever, I'd like to say, and
Good.
we've all three of us have had very different experiences from this
Okay.
accident, very different traumas.
Uh huh.
My sister has had the least physical trauma, although that's just comparing to myself and my
Right.
mother.
Right. Right.
Comparing to any normal human, she was extremely traumatized.
Of course.
One of the things that I really admire my sister for and could never sort of forget that is that she was awake through all of it.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't there. I was dead for all intents and purposes, and I was
Yeah.
put back to life.
Right. Right.
My
Right.
sister was there with my
Wow.
mother,
Okay.
awake through the fire and through the glass shards and the blood, and
Yeah. Oh
seeing
my
me
gosh.
essentially, seeing me die, seeing
Yeah.
me
Really.
disappear,
Yeah.
and seeing these other two people actually pass away. And I can't imagine the mental, emotional
Yeah.
damage because she's also my younger sister.
Okay.
So she was 8 or so, 8 or 9
Yeah.
when this
It's true.
happened.
They have that additional layer of trauma of recalling the accident where you were kind of spared that part.
Yeah,
Geez, when you think
I've
about
I've had
that,
to learn it through stories. I've had to learn it through
stories. Yep.
stories, and
Yep. Yeah.
I was surprised to hear about it when I woke up in the hospital bed. But my mother and my sister were, I mean, absolute the toughness to have
Yeah.
gone through that
Oh
experience
my
and
gosh.
to still be with all their senses and still
Yeah.
be on top of it and
Yep.
very much thriving. I'd like to say now our family is thriving in different ways and
That's
on
wonderful.
different continents,
Sure.
but we're persevering, and my sister as well is, I think, is doing very well. And
Good.
I'm so grateful and so happy for
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
uh, that it's just terrific. Thank you for
That's
asking.
wonderful. No, absolutely. So I'm curious. You have a recollection now of the past prior to the accident? Has that come back? Any of your childhood?
Very little.
Very
I feel
little.
like,
Okay.
but I'm comforted in this thought
Hmm.
that so much of our memory is made up anyway,
You know
right?
what? That's a good point because our recollection of 30 years ago isn't exactly what actually happened 30 years ago. It's just a
Exactly.
recollection of what we think happened. That's a very good point.
Right.
So
And
you
so
are,
I'm comforted. I'm comforted in this
yeah,
thought that,
yeah,
like, hey,
yeah,
memories aren't real anyway. They're just stories we tell each other and ourselves. And so
yeah,
I feel like I have the human equivalent of memory
yeah,
because I've heard a lot of stories and I
yeah.
have some
Right,
pieces left over
right.
that help me string it all together.
Right. All right. How about this one? How about this one? So the attention piece that you so wanted to get back. Do you recall the moment you realized, like you were aware that, oh my gosh, my attention, my focus, it's back. Do you recall that?
Gosh, no,
No.
it was not a specific moment. It
Yeah.
was. It's almost like it's kind of similar to like working out. You know,
Uh
you
huh.
go to the gym and you're like, I want to have a six pack or I want to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
big biceps,
Yeah.
and you start doing it and you do it every day. You do it for weeks, and like some time passes and you like don't notice it in the first week. You don't
Good
notice it in the
point.
second week.
Good
You don't
point.
can't see it,
Yeah.
and then you wake up 2 months later and you're like, oh my goodness, like
Look
you
at
can't
me.
recognize yourself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did it.
Okay.
It was a very similar experience around I put the work in and I did it every day.
Okay.
And I didn't stop and I didn't rest. And a few years later, I was already in high school. And I wake up one moment and I realize that all the kids in class
Yeah.
look to me to have the answer. You know, it's like this
Uh,
moment when like the teacher's asking a tough question,
yeah.
everybody's silent and everyone's looking at that
Look at
kid.
you to. Oh my
And they were
gosh.
looking at me and I was like, you know, I actually do know the answer. And here it is,
Love it.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that is so, you know, so small in the context of my
Yeah.
journey as a person, and like
Right.
being a high school nerd is not much.
Right.
But
Right.
to me, in that moment, when I graduated my school as a valedictorian,
Oh wow.
um, and I, you know, learned Hebrew and English, and I had all these like awards, and they were small scale awards because it was high school.
Right.
But when I was receiving these awards from teachers and universities giving me scholarships, and I'm like, who is this person that's receiving all this
There you go.
acknowledgement? Who
Yeah.
is this? I was like, oh my God, it's me.
It's you.
And I can do this and I can
Yeah.
remember things and I can learn and
Yeah.
I am back. I am
That's right.
back to my faculties. And so
That's
it was that moment, it was delayed. It was a delayed moment. But
yeah.
at one point when it hit me, I was like, oh my God, the gym was paying off.
Yeah, yeah. Look what I did, you know that's so important that we celebrate the small, well, small, the big victories. But I mean, you know what I mean. The small, like the steps along the way need to be celebrated because most of us wait until we get to the this part to celebrate, and some of us don't get here. But if we remember to celebrate every step towards in the progress in the process, we're going to be building our confidence up and it's just much more fulfilling when we celebrate the small wins along the way. And I'm sure you did that. I
So
mean, you
yeah.
celebrate you got your attention back, your focus, and then you get these accolades and you realize that people see you. They see you for who you are and for the hard work you've put in every aspect of your life, and that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, I would say for me, I didn't do enough of the celebrating of those small moments. And if I could go back in time, at least in that single moment, I would
Yeah.
say celebrate those wins. When you're able to, when I left the kind of special classroom, because
Yeah.
there were a couple of years when I was in a special classroom,
Sure.
which was for me, it felt very diminishing and it
Right.
felt very like I can get out of the situation where I'm being kind of when I'm playing on easy mode. Like
Sure.
I want to play in the big leagues.
Sure.
You know, there were these small moments along the way where like I wrote my first essay in English and it made sense and
Yeah.
like it made some sense
Yeah.
when I was able to like do math again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those moments, I wish I participated more in those moments and like
Yeah.
was more present in the celebrating of them,
Sure, sure, sure.
because I think a lot of people who go through this journey of like, let's say, let's bring back the working out analogy.
Yeah.
If you don't celebrate those wins, you might not have the patience or the
Mm.
stamina
To stick with
sometimes
it.
to
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
the ultimate waking up and you're ripped,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And I woke up one day and I was ripped.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, and I think myself, I had that risk of like, this could have not happened. And I
Yeah.
think celebrating the small steps along the way helps you get there with more, it prolongs your stamina at
It,
least.
it does. It feeds the resiliency. And you know what? No one, you can't, you can celebrate those small wins even now if you wanted to, just by, reliving those memories of, think about what the heck you did, man. I mean, I'm celebrating your small victories now because, hearing the story now and seeing where you are now, My God, that's a feel good story, and that's why I wanted you to be on, because it's a story that people need to hear, because they're going through stuff, and you're right. You can tell that story when you feel like it, because no one could tell that you went through all that stuff. You know.
Yeah,
So
and
thank you for
I
sharing that. Thanks.
appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for being vulnerable. So let's bring all of this to where you're what you're doing professionally, not necessarily now, but what when you got out of high school, you got out of college, what was your passion? What did you want to do? What did you want to do to pay the bills? Like what was your thing?
Yeah, I wanted to learn, and I think to me that was a very important ideal.
Yeah.
Like both coming out of high school, and I was coming out a very nerdy kid. I
Yeah.
took the most classes in the history of of high school.
Okay.
I took all these electives, all these additions, like
Yeah.
graduate valedictorian. And then I was like, what I want to do next? I want to learn. I want to keep doing this
Yeah.
because I'm getting rewarded for it.
Sure.
For me, it's the biggest, orgasmic feeling,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
like I've made right on my biggest adversity, my biggest
Yeah.
challenge, and I'm now being celebrated for it too. So
Right.
in college, I wanted to have the same experience.
Okay.
I wanted to go to a very academic school, which I wound up going to, I would say, the most academic school in probably the world. I went to the University of Chicago,
Okay.
which for me felt like the mecca
Yeah.
of intellectualism, academics, and academic rigor, like
Okay.
rigor of inquiry.
Sure.
So there, I continued on my journey of overdosing on the learning, of
I love it.
building that muscle,
Yeah.
and I got three bachelor degrees. So it's essentially three majors, but they are each given as a separate degree at the University of Chicago. And so I got a BA in economics,
Okay.
in abstract mathematics, and in philosophy.
Wow.
And I loved it. If I it kept feeding this high of
Sure.
like I have it back.
Right.
Perhaps I was overcompensating a little bit
It's
for not
okay.
having it for so many
You're
years,
entitled,
but it
man.
felt amazing. It
Yeah.
felt amazing,
Of course. Yeah.
And so when I started thinking about my early career, I was like, well, I want to keep riding this train. I want to
Hmm.
I want to have very intellectual, very like rigorous, very high stakes environment
Okay.
where I could learn very quickly.
Okay.
And going through the University of Chicago, there's a pretty big focus in the college experience the um, on finance.
Okay.
And finance generally is a pretty rigorous discipline where
Yes, it is.
you get to learn a lot about other disciplines.
Yep.
You get to bring in the social, emotional, and humanities muscles
Yep.
combined with the mathematical muscles, the
Right.
statistical muscles,
Yep.
and it felt like a really great area. And so I actually went into what I would describe as the high finance world,
Okay.
which for me looked like investment banking initially.
Okay.
Very high exposure field. You learn a lot very quickly, and you're expected to be a learner. You're expected to be a very fast learner, which for
Right.
me felt very right.
Sure.
And it gives you exposure across so many other fields. I've since done stints in private equity, venture capital, in corporate strategy, corporate development. These were all to me, uh, you know, high learning, like high paced learning environments.
Right. Absolutely.
And that was, I think, the continuing thread. Um, but that thread sort of evolved into what I'm doing now,
Right.
which is something I think is a little bit different.
Hmm. What are you doing now? I'd love to hear that. Because I mean, all the stuff
I
you
feel like
mentioned, I'm now going to see. I'm going to see if we can tie into what you're doing now, and see
yeah.
if those three bachelor's degrees, like what you've brought with you from those degrees, because quite often we don't end up doing professionally what we went to school for. So now I'm curious to hear it.
Totally. I'm definitely one of those people, and I went to school to learn,
Yeah.
not to get a trade skill. Like to
Right.
me, that was very important. I
Right.
think there's no wrong way of going to school as long as you're in school. Like there's many
Oh
ways
yeah.
to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For me, I wanted to have this idealistic space where I could truly learn for learning's sake,
Right.
not for a professional sake, and knowing that if I'm successful in learning, and if I can learn to learn,
Mm.
I can then pick up any sort of profession, any sort
Right.
of skill.
Right.
And so I never had the intention of becoming a philosopher or becoming a
Mhm.
mathematician or
Right.
becoming an economist.
Right.
But all of these skill sets have benefited me tremendously
Sure.
because I
Sure.
had different ways of learning.
Right.
And so as I kind of spun out of the orbit of high finance and strategy and
Yeah.
strategic finance,
Hmm.
which are all these things that I've mentioned: private equity,
Right.
venture capital, investment banking,
Right.
corporate strategy. As I spun out of those sort of worlds, the learning hasn't gone away. And I
Ah,
realized that
good.
learning is just something I'm going to do everywhere all the time.
Every time. Yep. Yep.
But I've had a reawakening of sort of a going back to my younger self, and I think in some ways honoring that experience of the attention
Right.
piece, where I wanted to build something that helps other people
Hmm.
regain their attention, right?
Oh,
And it wasn't
very
a
good.
medical, it wasn't
Right.
a healthcare. Yeah,
Right.
that's where the
Right.
connection is.
That's
It
okay.
wasn't a healthcare or like a medical device, although obviously those would be phenomenal.
Right.
It was a tool that, in a technological way, with a
Right.
software way,
Sure.
um, it was a process that gave people attention back. And
Got it.
as I thought about it's sort of these two big threads of my life, one was the attention
Right.
supremacy, like the
Hmm.
focus on attention, how important that is.
Right.
And the other is as I lived at that point in Ukraine, in Israel, and
Right.
all around Ukraine, and all around Israel,
Right.
and then in the United States. At that point, I was in New York, in Chicago, in San Francisco, and I was feeling that people have lost the thread on what's going on in the world.
Oh my
People have
gosh.
been resigned from the
Yeah.
from the public
Hmm.
sort of the public's connection to political, economic,
Yeah.
world developments, and I
Hmm.
felt like people were losing the power of facts. All they were
Mm.
left with the legacy news media
Yeah.
is news commentary,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
Is
Yep.
conversations about news,
Yep.
discussions of news, but not actually the facts themselves.
Now the
And
headlines.
these,
The headline
yeah,
grabbing. Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
clickbait, the
Yeah.
clickbait headlines, right?
Got it. Yeah.
And so those two threads combined to say, well, what if I helped people get their attention back
Okay.
in the world of world news and
Hmm.
current affairs, so
Got it.
that I could help people who identify with the world and think of themselves as global citizens,
All right.
right? As I've always felt.
Okay.
I could I could empower that
Yep.
instinct
I'm
to
starting to get.
learn,
I'm
to
starting to get it
understand.
now. I'm starting to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I happen to know what you're doing now. Now, I did read that you've had three other companies prior to the one you're doing now.
Yes.
So let's really briefly. What was the first company you founded? What was it, and how did that?
It was a learning company.
Okay, that's
Uh,
okay.
I I wrote a book
Uh-huh.
that was book is probably a strong word for it, but I wrote a textbook component
Okay.
that was a standalone learning resource for people who had a hard time with the way history was taught in
Ah,
thematic ways. You know how
yeah,
U.S. history specifically
yeah,
is
yeah.
taught through themes,
Yes,
right? There is the Western expansion, and there's
yes,
the antebellum, there's the
yeah.
postbellum. You're like,
Mhm.
what year is this?
Yeah,
Like, I
right.
don't know what
Exactly.
year we're in.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was actually that. It was trying to teach a chronological
Right.
way of
Got it.
United States history. And I wrote a book called American Chronology
I love it.
that it became a business when we started selling it to schools
Oh,
and
okay.
history
Good.
departments.
Good.
And
I'm
they
glad they
loved
were
it.
buying it. Good.
They were like, this is exactly how, this is what we were missing,
Yes.
right? Because as part of my research, I went through all these textbooks that exist on American history. I went to all
Yeah.
these libraries
Yeah.
everywhere, and not a single one of them gave you a faithful and complete chronology of American history.
Absolutely.
It all was broken up in these themes and
Yeah.
topics and chapters
I love that you
that
did that.
had crossovers between them. And so you couldn't tell what
No.
year it was going on.
Well, I love that you did it chronologically because then people can understand how this wove into this and how this connect. You kind of put American history into context, proper context. What
Exactly.
was happening at the time, then what occurred, and how what occurred then fed into. I love the chronological aspect of it. So that was the
Thank you.
first one. Now, what
That was the
happened?
first
And
venture.
yeah, what happened from first one to second one? Did you keep the first one while you opened the second one, or what happened next?
kept the first one. We even still have some of our copies. We wound up publishing two editions,
Okay.
both internationally. So the
Okay.
first
Cool.
edition was published mostly in Israel,
Okay.
but the second edition of the book, it had an ISBN, so it was an international serial book number. That's
Okay.
the code of the books that are
Yeah.
give them the ability to be sold worldwide.
Good.
And we've brought them to schools, a lot of international schools, a lot of American international schools in
How about
Israel,
University of
in Ukraine.
Chicago? Did you bring it to University of Chicago? We got to bring
You
it
know,
there. That'd be awesome.
I would say so. I would agree. And we did physically bring,
Bring it. Yeah.
because
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
Let's start
spent some
using
time
it. That'd be
there.
so cool. Yeah.
Um, but it was much more geared towards high school.
Oh, for high
And so
school. Yeah,
to
that makes sense.
me,
That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it wouldn't be a bad resource for like university,
Yeah.
but it was very geared
Geared
towards
towards high
like
school,
high school folks because
which
it
is
was
good.
channeling back my experience.
That's a good time
It
in
was
life
my
to learn that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was like that's when US history is most generally taught, right? At
Right.
least
True.
in the US system.
True.
And it channeled my high school history of like I
Yeah.
had a hard time learning the traditional
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted
Yeah.
to build a way that other people could also relate with and then, understand
Yeah.
that gave them a different way of conceptualizing the same things.
Love it.
And people have been very successful learning through our system. And
What
it
was
made
the
me
name? What
feel
was the name of that book? I didn't mean
incredible.
to cut you off. What's the name of that book?
It's called, quite literally American Chronology.
All right, I'm writing that down. All right, guys, you write that down and get a copy of it. American Chronology. Okay, cool. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
If you're interested in a copy, if anyone wants a copy, I would be delighted to send one over. I
Absolutely.
think it's been taken off Amazon. We've taken it off Amazon Prime, and we've taken it off
Oh,
our,
you have. Okay.
all the, yeah. So it's much less accessible because we also used to sell them in wholesale.
Oh,
We didn't
okay.
really ever sell them
Oh,
to
true.
individuals. We sold them to
Yeah,
entire
to
departments.
schools. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
But
Yeah.
we still have a few hundred copies laying around. We had big volumes, so we're happy
Yeah.
to. If anyone wants a copy,
All right.
just so it should be an email, should be a LinkedIn message, and I'll be more than happy to share.
Absolutely.
It means a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the second business.
So the second business was, an experience very different. It was mostly learning for me. It was getting into the crypto world and
Oh.
understanding,
Okay.
yeah, like how this whole era was working. This
Yeah.
was early days of Ethereum, early days of the whole crypto universe.
Right.
And this one was less around helping other people, which for me kind of left a bit of a mark because I felt like the reason I think it didn't stick for me is because it was very technological, it
Yeah.
was very anonymous, and
Yeah.
it you were contributing to an ecosystem,
Right.
but you weren't contributing to like individual people. And
Right.
for me, I've struggled with that. Like I need to feel the customer impact. I
Yes.
need to feel that somebody's benefiting. The kids are reading the book,
Right.
or the folks right now with Informed are getting the tangible effect.
Sure.
So it felt very much like it was too distanced from the impact, and so that was a crypto mining company
Okay.
where we helped validate at a large scale the Ethereum network
Okay.
and a couple of different tokens on that network. And this is like 10 years ago,
Right. Right.
if
Right. Right.
not more. But that was a fascinating field where I was learning a
You
lot.
were
It was back
learning.
to
So
me
it was
learning
back to you
completely
learning.
new
Yep.
different things.
I love
Yeah.
that. God, what a big difference. Kind of difference between all your three BAs too. From economics, philosophy, the investment banking.
Yeah.
All right. So that's business two. How about business three?
Business 3 was very special environment because it was an incubation within a
Okay.
large corporate environment
All right.
where we sort of were brought in. It was a small team. That was one we had, five other co-founders, and we're a small team of five, this founding team. And we essentially saw a problem in the industry. This
Okay.
was in the tax world of Intuit, in the world of
Ah.
TurboTax, in the world of
Okay.
Intuit,
Yeah.
where we were kind of brought in to solve a problem of why can't we help customers at scale with accountants? Like why can't we enable and make it as successful for people who no longer want to use software, no longer want to use TurboTax,
Right.
but they still want technological help and accountant help to do their taxes.
Got it.
And so we created a solution that was in some ways very sophisticated, in some ways very simple.
Yeah.
It was a an expert marketplace that allowed the tax filers to connect with verified and vetted accountants that were
I love that.
independent accountants and practice
Wow.
owners,
Okay.
but still have the power of TurboTax portal, of document management, of security,
Okay.
of video calling through secure channels,
Yeah.
of document storage,
Right.
of a lot of QuickBooks, Credit Karma integrations,
Yeah.
so that there is so much more professionalization, where
Wow.
not the accountant is not left with moving papers and trying to
Right.
figure out where all their clients are,
Yeah.
but they're working with a system that's very sophisticated.
I love it.
They're working with a TurboTax engine,
Yeah.
and you're able to, as a tax filer, have a really premium experience.
Okay.
On the other side of the accountant, you had support. You weren't alone running the practice. You had the support of Intuit, the credibility, the reputation, the distribution of Intuit.
Mm-hmm.
And you had website support, technological
Yeah.
support. You had your own QuickBooks for an accountant. You had
Right.
your own MailChimp. You had just the power of Intuit in your back pocket.
Yeah.
You had essentially the backing. You had the backing of Intuit
Wow.
to to build a business. And so it was a two-sided marketplace where we're
Sure.
helping accountants run their businesses and we're helping tax filers,
Yeah.
get on top of their taxes. And so that was a very special project. It
Yeah.
was we allocated $30 million to building it,
Right.
and it was a very successful marketplace. And then it evolved into what is now TurboTax Full Service and TurboTax Live, which is
Okay.
a big part of the TurboTax business.
Good. So you still have a legacy there.
Absolutely. I
All
mean, I
right.
think
Love that.
that model of helping accountants connect with tax
Tax
filers
filers. Yeah.
is just so needed in this country,
Absolutely.
where we everything is run on tax. Tax
Yeah.
is the bloodline of America.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, I'm glad that's still around. So that's great. Now, drum roll, please. Informed now. I want to hear about that. And let's bring this to a close by talking about informed now, and then I have a couple questions.
Absolutely, and I think that's where it was a moment in my life where I'm like, hey, how can I have the most impact that feels right to doing justice to my history, my story.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm actually wearing
Yes,
an
there it
informed
is.
shirt
So for the
right
folks who are
here.
just listening, he's got a shirt that says informed.now. That's actually the name of the company and the website of what Kira is going to tell us about
Yeah,
now. All right, now we're going to learn
and
about
and
Inform Now.
and I was in this moment where I really felt I wanted to kind of marry those threads. I
Yeah.
wanted to keep learning myself.
Hmm.
I wanted to enable other people to learn in powerful ways so they can improve themselves,
Right.
become more in touch with the world, and have that sort of global citizen connection.
Okay.
But then I also wanted to do justice to the attention sabotage that was happening to
Mm.
me in my earlier life, but also
Hmm.
is happening left and right across legacy media.
Right.
I was feeling the predatory clickbait, the structural sensationalism, the
Right.
ceaseless solicitation that was
Yes.
taking place
Yeah, absolutely.
in news media,
Right.
and it made me sick. It made me like it reminded me of those years
Hmm.
of disorientation,
Right.
of not being able to figure out what's happening, what's going on, and it
Uh,
broke my heart. It
yep.
broke my heart.
And you lived it
And
for a
so,
while. You actually
and I
lived
lived it
even if you didn't want to,
immersively.
you had no
Yeah.
choice. You were forced to live it because of the accident. So I
And so now
understand.
I was seeing generations of
Yeah.
people, generations of Americans growing up in a media environment
Yes.
that was inherently predatory
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
inherently disorienting.
Absolutely.
Clickbait,
Yep.
advertisement,
Hmm.
sensationalism,
Yep.
dramatization,
Yep.
bias, agenda,
Oh
all
my
of this
gosh.
stuff
Yep.
pushed
All of it.
down the American's throat. And I was just
Yes.
like, we can do this better.
Much
Like, we
better.
can do
Yeah.
this so much better. And so I set out to build informed.now, which
Okay.
combines sort of all these things I mentioned. What we do is we make news readable again
Okay.
for people who want their attention back, want
Right.
to wield their attention themselves, don't want to be hijacked, don't
Right.
want to be clickbaited and held hostage by the
Right.
doom scroll or by the media algorithm.
Right.
They want to be informed, but not influenced.
You're helping
Informed,
bring
but not
back.
manipulated.
You're helping bring back critical thinking.
Yes.
Yep.
helping to empower that. We're giving the
Empower it.
tools
Yeah.
for you to make up your own mind, for you to think through
Absolutely.
things yourself.
Love it.
And informed.now, essentially in simple words, to keep it short, we read all the world's news 24/7.
Yep.
We monitor the most world changing phenomenon
Yep.
and we surface it to you via text message. We actually SMS text it to you. We give you the facts without bias, without clickbait, without solicitation, without advertisement, without dramatization, without verbosity, without any of this noise that has become so commonplace
Yeah.
in the news industry that we
Absolutely.
just take it for granted.
Yes,
We
we
don't
do.
have to take it for granted. We can
No.
have a better way. And that's what Informed Now does. It's the number one news by text service in America.
Okay.
And we are just getting started in bringing the power of facts in your pocket, the power of facts on your phone, so that you can read in peace
Mhm.
and, and get informed without getting influenced.
Okay. So we get it on our phone, the text, but we can go to your website inform.now for more information.
Exactly. The best way to
Yeah.
learn more about what we're doing
Yeah.
and sign up, and if there's anyone who's interested in reading news in a different way that
Yeah.
takes 30 seconds a day
Yeah.
and never should take more than that,
Right.
because that's already turning into entertainment, and we don't do entertainment, we do news pure.
Pure.
And inform.now is our website, but the way we run the whole experience is entirely through SMS. So you can text us at 1-800, or sorry, 844
Okay.
406
Uh-huh.
info. That's our, it's, we think of it as the biggest news by text toll free line in
I love
America.
it. Okay.
So we've got 800 junk, 800 flowers, all these
Yeah.
things. We are more associated with the flowers than we are with the junk, to be
There we
clear.
go. Love it.
Um, but we are 844 406
Uh-huh.
info,
Info.
which is another way to connect with us, is to just shoot us a message.
Yeah, I was gonna say, folks, you definitely captured the essence of Kira Shishkin right now, and you can reach him on LinkedIn. He's only, as he said, is his words, the only Kira Shishkin in the world. So you can find him on LinkedIn easily. Go to informed.now. That's the website and the name of the company. And that number again that they can text to, 844-840 info.
No, it's 844
844.
406.
I'm sorry, 406
Yeah,
info. All right,
info.
guys, 844-406 info. That is awesome. You and I can probably talk for another few hours, but we are definitely going to have to wrap this up. So I want to ask you my two final questions. You ready for this? All
I'm
right.
excited.
All right. So Kira, you're sitting in your happy place and you're sitting down with 7 to 10-year-old Kira Shishkin and you want to give him advice about life. What are you going to tell him?
Everything has the power to make you stronger if you let it. I think that's been a personal mantra that I've picked up. I don't think anyone else, I think it's my own little invention, but it's obviously a combination of other
Yeah.
quotes.
Sure.
But everything has the power to make you stronger if you let it.
If you
And I
let it.
think of that every time that I re-encounter adversity. As you know, I'm Ukrainian Israeli.
Mm-hmm.
So um, ever since all this stuff happened, we've also had a war in
Yeah.
both my
Oh
countries
my
rage
gosh.
out
Yep.
for now many years. And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've had no shortage of adversity
Right.
since my big sort of childhood moment.
Right.
But as I encounter adversity, I just remember this quote because I've lived it and I've proved it to myself
Yep.
that everything has the power to make you stronger if you let it.
If you let it is the key piece. You got to let it in. You got to be willing and able. I love that advice. All right, so now let's switch gears. Now you're sitting down with young businessman, young entrepreneur Kira Shishkin, and you want to give him advice about business. What are you going to tell him?
Gosh, the single most important um, advice comes from Nike, and it's so cheesy, right? Because
Yeah,
it's Nike, it's a
yeah,
sneakers company, but just do it.
just do it.
And if I was to phrase it in my own words, I would just say start now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, start now. If you're 7 years old, start now.
I
If you
love it.
feel any semblance of an instinct, of a feeling, of a
Yeah.
gut check that
Yes.
you want to do something, whether that's building a solution, building a practice,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're an accountant or a coach or a psychologist
Yeah.
or a therapist or an entrepreneur or anything that you want to be,
Right.
if you have any sort of spark in you that says, oh, I know there's a better way. I know we can do this better.
I love it.
Just start now.
Start.
Don't wait until perfect. Don't wait until you're ready. You're never going to be ready.
No.
Just start right away. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Don't quit
Right.
your job. Don't,
Right. Yeah.
tattoo it on your face. Don't tattoo
Right.
your logo on your chin.
Right.
Just begin. Whatever that little scale of begin looks like, but begin today. Begin now.
I love it.
Don't wait.
I love it. Start now. Well, I want to thank you, Kira, for coming into my life. I want to thank you for being who you are. Wonderful human being. You've gone through a lot, and rather than be the victim, you're out there trying to help people find that attention, to find that focus again. And I thank you for that because the world needs Kira Shishkin. So keep doing what you're doing, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Drew. It means a lot to have this conversation with you, and I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much. Everybody out there, I want you to be good to yourselves and I want you to start now. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.